Smart Migration Demo. I want to migrate a bunch of files from a file source into SharePoint Online, but I don't want them just lift and shift. I want them in different structure with different metadata, etc. Every migration is different. We all know that. Just like in the aviation industry. When there's a new plane, you learn to fly that new plane in a flight simulator. Since every migration is different, let's enable migration simulation. The key to migration simulation is the proxy file. The proxy file is a representation of the real file. It's basically an empty shell pointing to the file and having properties defining the different metadata. To simulate a migration, what we do is that we build a structure within Teams that represents the original structure with proxy files instead of the real files. Then the content owners can restructure the content using cut, copy, and paste, and they can set metadata and content type, etc. all within Teams. Also, you can do automated actions like setting content type conditionally without any coding. Once the simulation is complete, the migration takes place. The simulation becomes the actual migration result. So what happens is that the simulated structure and file metadata, including name and content type, is combined with the real file's binary content to form the migration result. The migration task is now complete. The entire process from discovery to restructuring, metadata tagging, and migration is automatically documented and available within Teams. Smart Migration is based on out-of-the-box functionality, so no need for any admin consent. It uses one document library for all actions like file discovery and migration. You can have different groups of people organized in channels so that they can work with their own migrations independently. Behind the scenes runs migration flow for SharePoint that executes the different actions transparently. Okay, let's begin with a discovery job to build the representation for the file source. This is my file source, and this is the representation of the file source that we're going to create in Teams. To create a discovery job, click the New button and select Discovery Job. Discovery Job is basically a folder with some additional properties. I'm going to name my discovery job My Files. And My Files happens to be in a file share, but they could just as well be in a SharePoint location somewhere. Any version of SharePoint is supported. In the UNC column, I'll put in the path to my files. I have my files here. As you can see, I've got folder 1 with the files in it. So I'm just going to take this path and put into UNC column. That's basically all I have to do. Before this job gets processed, I need to signal that it is ready. Now you could apply any workflow and so on to have that managed in a different way. I'm just going to set the job ready. Now when I hit save, migration flow for SharePoint that works behind the scenes will then pick up the job and do the discovery. In the dashboard list, you can follow the progress of the different jobs that runs in the background. Let's refresh the list to see if it has indeed been picked up. Let's refresh. Now the job has completed. Let's go to the job to see what happened. Go to the model library, into My Files, and you see I've got the folder 1 right there, and I've also got my files, my 3 files in there as proxy files, right? So when I click one of these files, SharePoint will say, well, I don't know this file because it's basically empty. Let's just click it and see what happens. You'll see that SharePoint says, this is not a good file, right? Which it isn't because it's empty. Right, let's have a look at the properties for one of those files. So I'll go and say properties. And as you can see, the source file properties are right here. This is where the source file originates. And And this is the file owner, and this is when it was last accessed, and so on and so forth. So now the representation of the files have completed, and I can start work with the files. I can do it as a migration team member, or the content owner who actually knows what these files are all about can do it. I want to reorganize the files, and I want to rename folder 1 to sales, and I want to create a few folders in here, and I want to change the names of the files. Also, I want to apply some content types to some of the files. And there's one file I'm not interested in, which is this one. Okay, I'm going to rename the folder. Now I have reorganized my content, and I have created new folders, and I have renamed some files, and I have deleted some files. What I also want to do is I want to change the content type. And in this case, I'm going to do it manually. There will be a separate video that displays the super effective way of doing it automated. So I'll go into sales, and I will select the forecast folder, and I will go and say, this is going to be a different content type. So I'm going to the content types and change it to a smart file. Now, smart file has got a number of extra columns. As you can see, it's got a more info, say this is demo. And also it's got a managed metadata column where we can select a tag value. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to say this is a corporate file. Apply. Now let's have a look at what we just did. We had this representation in Teams, and we changed it to this. We deleted this file, and also I went in and added a content type to the Q3 forecast. Next is to create the migration job. In exactly the same way, I create a folder, but this time of the content type migration job. The content type migration job is basically just inherited from folder. I'll give it a name. Migrate my files. And then where would I like it to go? I want it to end up in this document library on this site. So I'll just copy the URL. And paste it into the destination. Now my job is ready to run. However, there's no content in the job right now. So let's just save it and put in some content. I'll go to my discovery job, my files. I will move the folder sales into my migration job. So now my files discovery is empty. If I rerun that job that did the discovery and there were new files detected, those files will pop up here. Let's go to my migration job called Migrate My Files. And here's my folder. I could mix content from multiple file share discoveries and multiple SharePoint discoveries, even across multiple different platforms. So that I could actually mix files from file shares, multiple file shares, files from on-prem, files from multiple different SharePoint tenants, all together in one job. I can have as many jobs as I like, and I can have them sit there until I decide that they are ready to run. All right, now let's go to the job and signal to migration flow that this job is ready to run. I'll go down to job status and signal ready. Now the job will be picked up automatically by the background process. We can go to the dashboard and have a look. You can see the migration job Migrate My Files is currently running. Let's refresh the job to see how it goes. The job has completed. So let's bring back the site where we wanted the content to end up. And here we go, the sales folder. And these were the two folders that I created deliberately. The sales folder was the one that I renamed. And let's have a look inside forecasts. Notice that it's got the content type smart file. This is demo, and it is a corporate file. And if I open the file, we will see that this is the forecast file. If we go back to proposals, we will see sales proposal. Let's open sales proposal. Here we go. Look at that. That's the original content, right? So it's just to show you it is the real deal. Now that the migration job has completed successfully and we have seen the result, let's have a look at the automatically generated documentation. Let's go back to the model library and look at the migration job, migrate my files. When I look at the properties for migrate my files, I can see when the job was executed and what the result was. Also, I can go to each and every file and have a look at what happened to that specific file. So I'll go to the forecast or the proposals, and have a look at sales proposal. Notice that the file cannot be loaded because it's still a proxy, right? It doesn't exist within Teams. So we can see the name is sales proposal, and we can see the size and modified date and so on and so forth. And we can also see where this file originated. But up here we can see where did we put it? We put it into sales proposals. And that is exactly where the file got migrated. Here is the migration message, and I can see all the different things that happen to that file, including what content type and whatever you assign to that file. So the documentation is extremely detailed all the way down to the file level. Let's do a quick recap. The key is the proxy file. The proxy file is a digital representation of the real file. It's empty and only contains a pointer to the real file along with the metadata. Then what we did was we created a digital representation of the source files, only with proxies. Then we did the restructuring by creating new folders, renaming folders, and renaming files. We even assigned a content type to some of the files. The simulation that we created then became the actual end result.